You ungrateful little bastard. The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. Eli's face twisted in anger. Who do you think you're talking to? He spat back. You're not my mother. But I raised you as my own. I cried out in frustration. For 18 years I had given this boy everything. My love, my time, my care. And this was the thanks I got. Across the dining table, my husband Derek sat motionless, his eyes darting between us. You didn't raise me. You just latched onto my dad and pretended to play house. Eli sneered. His words pierced my heart like an icy dagger. I struggled to keep my voice steady. Is that what you truly think? That I was just pretending all these years? Eli shrugged. It doesn't matter now anyway. I'm moving out and you're no longer required as a substitute mom. His casual, dismissive tone inflamed my anger. I waited for Derek to jump in, to defend me after everything I had sacrificed. Instead, he just cleared his throat and said softly, Eli's right, dear. He's an adult now. Things will be different from now on. His placid agreement stunned me into silence. After a strained pause, Eli shoved back his chair and stormed out. Derek calmly took another bite of steak, avoiding my gaze. I sat there, shaking with emotion I dared not reveal. The final pretense had been torn away. I had given everything to this family, and they had thrown it all back in my face without a second thought. I stayed up all night, thoughts swirling feverishly as I lay next to Derek's softly snoring form. Marrying him had been my fairy tale. The handsome CEO sweeping me off my feet after a difficult divorce. I gladly took on the role of adoring wife and loving stepmother. But now I saw the facade for what it was. Derek's charm had blinded me to his emotional distance. He lavished me with affection in public, but behind closed doors remained aloof and preoccupied. I brushed it off, not wanting to seem needy or insecure. As for Eli, despite my efforts, he had never warmed to me. He was always polite yet coolly indifferent, seeing me as an intruder. In my desperation to hold this family together, I had silenced my own doubts and painful truths. No more. The veil had lifted, and I saw the situation for what it was, a sham, a farce, an illusion I had maintained with my blood, sweat, and tears while they silently resented me. Never again. The pale light of dawn crept across our bedroom floor. Derek slept soundly still, unaware of the storm brewing within me. I slid out of bed and dressed silently, then slipped out the front door into the cold morning air. My breath came out in icy puffs as I strode briskly down the quiet street. The neighborhood slowly awoke around me, oblivious families starting their Saturday morning routines. But my life would never be the same. Last night had been my breaking point, the catalyst that finally sparked my anger and resolve for retribution. For too long I had silently suffered Derek's emotional distance and Eli's subtle hostility. It was time they learned actions have consequences. No more Mrs. Nice Gal. If Derek wanted to cast me aside, like used goods, he had no idea who he was dealing with. And Eli would realize just how much he owed me, whether he liked it or not. My mind raced with possibilities. I had access to all of Derek's accounts. I could cripple him financially. Surely he had secrets that wouldn't stand the light of exposure. And if they thought I would just fade quietly into the background, they were dead wrong. I would make them pay. The morning sun crept higher as I walked, thawing the frost on the neighborhood lawns. My breath had stopped clouding the air. The icy knot in my chest had dissolved, replaced by a burning determination. By the time I returned home and crept back into bed beside Derek's gently snoring form, the seeds of a plan had begun to take root in my mind. My old life was over, but my new one was just beginning. The next few weeks passed in a blur. On the surface, I maintained the facade of the perfect wife. I continued performing my wifely duties, keeping up the house, cooking meals, supporting Derek's career, but it was all an act. Inside, I had changed. The rose-colored glasses were off, and I saw my marriage for what it was, a sham. Derek remained his usual charming yet distant self, unaware of the growing storm within me. One evening after dinner, I casually asked him about work. "Oh, just the usual office politics and deal-making," he replied breezily. "Don't you worry your pretty little head about it." He gave me a patronizing pat on the hand. I used to find his evasiveness mysteriously alluring. Now it infuriated me. What was he hiding? I soon found out. Organizing his home office one day, I uncovered credit card bills and bank statements revealing massive withdrawals to casinos and luxury hotels. So this was how the great Derek Jennings was spending his time and money, while I budgeted every grocery store trip. Confronting Derek would be useless, I realized. He would just charm his way out of it. I needed to gather more evidence and hit him where it really hurt, his reputation. I reached out to Lena, Derek's ex-wife and Eli's biological mom. We met for coffee, and her resentment toward Derek soon became clear. "He pushed me out of Eli's life, turned my own son against me," she said bitterly. "I've been silenced and discarded one too many times." I nodded. "You and me both. But not anymore." I confided my discoveries about Derek's unscrupulous finances and infidelities. Lena's eyes widened, then narrowed vengefully. "Let's bury him," she said coldly. In the weeks that followed, we secretly gathered information on Derek's shady business deals and affairs. He had no idea what was coming. One evening, I was tidying Derek's study when I heard hushed voices downstairs. Creeping to the balcony, I saw Derek murmuring intimacies into his phone. "Of course I miss you, darling. We'll be together again soon, I promise." Rage boiled inside me as I realized this was how he spoke to his mistress, not me. I vowed he would pay for every sweet deception. The final straw came during Eli's graduation party planning. "We should invite Marla's family," I suggested. "It's been so long since they've seen Eli." Derek dismissed the idea. "It'll already be crowded enough. This party is for Eli and our close friends. Your family will just make things uncomfortable." His callous exclusion of my family, after all I'd done for Eli, ignited my fury. The time had come to bring Derek's house of cards crashing down. Lena and I would plan the graduation party together, I decided, but it would be far from the celebration Derek expected. I would give the performance of a lifetime, lulling Derek into complacency. And then, in front of his family, colleagues, and community, I would expose his lies and decadence for all to see. "Let's see how charming you are when this party ends in ruin, Derek. You cast me aside, now it's my turn. He's going to regret the day he crossed us." Lena slammed her coffee cup down with such force I worried it might crack. Her eyes blazed with anger. We were at our usual hidden booth in the back of the Daily Grind, plotting our revenge on Derek. "You're right," I said. "He thinks he can just use people and toss them aside. It's time to teach him a lesson." Lena and I were allies now by our desire for retribution. I had been hesitant to contact her at first. Derek had ensured she was pushed out of his and Eli's lives long ago, but swallowing my pride, I reached out. To my surprise, Lena harbored the same hurt and resentment toward Derek. We quickly bonded over our stories of silence and disregard. "He's humiliated both of us for too long," Lena said bitterly. "I've dreamed of this day, finally making him pay." I nodded. "I have everything we need to ruin his reputation and career. We'll expose his lies publicly when it will hurt the most." Lena smiled vengefully. "Let's do it at Eli's graduation party. Derek will have all his colleagues, clients, and fake friends there. It'll be perfect." We laughed as we plotted our revenge. It frightened me how good deception felt, after years of being the loyal, dutiful wife. But Derek's actions had hardened my heart. He would learn you reap what you sow. "What about Eli?" I asked Lena. "He worships his father." "It's time Eli learns the truth," Lena said bitterly. "Derek has poisoned him against me all these years, but he can't hide his true colors anymore." I thought of Eli's cold dismissal of me, how he had called me a substitute mom. He would finally see I was the one who truly cared for him, not his toxic father. Over the next weeks, Lena and I meticulously planned each moment of the graduation party reveal. I gathered irrefutable evidence of Derek's unethical business deals, lavish spending, and repeated infidelity. Lena reached out to others Derek had wronged over the years, former partners, jilted lovers, ruined lives he left in his wake. On the surface, I played the oblivious, dutiful wife preparing for Eli's celebration, but it would be Derek's reckoning. The night before the party, Derek joined me in bed, full of his usual charm. "You've outdone yourself planning tomorrow, dear," he said, kissing my cheek. "It will be the perfect day for our Eli." I forced a smile. "I'm so proud of our son." Our son. I almost laughed at Derek's blindness. He had no idea what was coming. For years I had swallowed the bitter pill, playing happy family while my soul withered. No more. Derek and Eli would finally see me unleashed. After Derek drifted off, I lay awake trembling. Could I go through with such calculated humiliation and destruction? Derek's actions had driven me to this point, but did he deserve such cruelty? No. I steeled myself. He deserved this, and more. I would channel all the years of silence and disregard to finally speak my truth. By the time the party ended, Derek's facade would be shattered. He had lit this fire himself. Now it was time for everything to burn. The day had finally arrived. Eli's graduation party loomed before me, the culmination of weeks of meticulous planning and preparation. Today, Derek's web of lies would unravel for all to see. I woke early, a knot of anticipation and nerves twisting inside me. Derek was already gone for last-minute party errands. The house echoed with emptiness. In just a few hours, our immaculately decorated backyard would be filled with Derek's closest family, friends, and business associates. He had spared no expense, intent on displaying his ideal family and status. It was the perfect stage for his downfall. As the caterers began arriving, I retreated to Derek's study to collect myself. On the desk sat meticulously organized folders containing every sordid detail of his financial deceit and infidelity. Lena and I had pored over them for weeks, preparing for this day. Now, they waited like ticking time bombs, poised to detonate Derek's life. I ran my hand over the folders, hesitating. Could I truly unleash such destruction, even if deserved? Shaking my head, I steeled myself. I had come too far to turn back now. Voices floated in from outside. The first guests were arriving. I took a deep breath and stepped out to play the glowing host, as if this were just another celebration. Within the hour, the party was in full swing. Guests filled the yard, mingling and laughing in the afternoon sun. Derek beamed, playing the consummate host. He kissed my cheek. Perfect as always, my dear. Eli will be so pleased. I smiled tightly. Let's hope so. Across the yard, I caught Lena's eye. She gave me a subtle nod. It was time. As Derek turned to mingle, Lena began ushering our hand-picked guests inside. Former business partners Derek had misled and ruined, jilted lovers carrying his love letters, colleagues aware of his unethical actions. I followed them to the living room. When Derek entered, still smiling, he froze. The color slowly drained from his face as he took in the waiting crowd. "What's going on?" he stammered. "An intervention," I said coldly. Closing the double doors, I faced him alone. They're here to finally reveal the truth about the man hiding behind this facade. Derek's composure shattered. "Marla, you can't possibly," he spluttered. Ignoring him, I turned to our silent witnesses. One by one, guided by Lena's probing questions, they came forward. They spoke of Derek's callous manipulations, his financial misdeeds, his cutthroat duplicity masked by charm. Each revelation landed like a hammer blow, exposing Derek's craven true nature concealed beneath his perfect image. "You can't do this," Derek yelled, panicked. "This is absurd. I'll deny all of it." His voice trailed off lamely. I almost pitied Derek as his web of lies unraveled before my eyes. But I also felt a vengeful satisfaction at finally speaking my truth. Voices sounded outside. The party guests were looking for us. The show wasn't over yet. I turned to Derek, my fury uncontrolled. "You look so surprised. Is this not the adoring, obedient wife you expected? I wonder what our guests will think." Before Derek could respond, I threw open the doors, unveiling the shocked faces within. Derek stood framed in the doorway, exposed and broken. Step one was complete. Now to bring the whole charade crumbling down. The night air was still, not even a breeze disturbing the trees. I stared out my bedroom window into the darkness, unable to sleep. The graduation party loomed tomorrow, the culmination of weeks of secrecy and planning. After tomorrow, my life would never be the same. Was I truly ready to unleash this nuclear option, exposing Derek so ruthlessly? I wavered between electric anticipation and gnawing self-doubt. In the bed beside me, Derek slept peacefully, unaware of the reckoning barreling his way. I envied his blissful ignorance. What would it be like, I wondered, to be so certain in your path that no nagging voices gave you pause? But I had chosen my path long ago, when Derek and Eli made it painfully clear my years of devotion meant nothing. The time had come to speak my truth, whatever the cost. Tomorrow, when Derek's colleagues, clients, and peers arrived, they would bask in his charm and success, the perfect picture of achievement. But at my signal, it would all come crashing down. His facade would crack, his misdeeds and callousness exposed for all to see. Lena and I had prepared for every contingency and outcome. Derek's business partners and friends would abandon him, his reputation in tatters. The community that once revered him would finally know the man he truly was beneath the polished veneer. And Eli, my dear stepson Eli. He would watch his father's fall from grace, the heroic image Derek had instilled since childhood shattered forever. Perhaps then he would finally see me for who I was, not the substitute mother he callously dismissed. Perhaps we could begin anew. They say living well is the best revenge. But sometimes you need to force the world to open its eyes. Derek and Eli had quietly rejected me for years, content to cast me out with polite indifference. No more. I would reject them first, spectacularly and without mercy. My absence would cut deeper than any loving words could heal. As the sky lightened to gray, I rose silently and dressed, moving through the hushed early morning shadows. Derek never stirred. Outside, the neighborhood was just beginning to wake. A sprinkler hissed to life, a dog barked, a car backed slowly from a driveway. In a few hours they would all congregate cheerfully at our home, then depart in shock once the veil was torn away. These familiar streets seemed foreign, the houses of neighbors I'd known for years now looming ominously. I wondered if I would ever walk this path again after today. But I continued on, my course set. The time for doubt and reflection was past. Whatever consequences came, I was ready. My old life of silent servitude was already dead. By day's end, Derek's would be too. The caterers would arrive in an hour, then the guests, then Derek's judgment. As the day awoke around me, I steeled myself for the role of a lifetime. When I returned home, I found Derek humming cheerfully as he prepared for the party. So oblivious, I thought. He pecked me on the cheek, smiling. "This is it, my dear, Eli's big day." I swallowed hard and mustered a smile. Yes, it is. The show was about to begin. This was it, the moment I had planned and prepared for. Time seemed to slow as I surveyed the unsuspecting party guests mingling and laughing in the yard, Derek charming them all effortlessly. They had no idea the bomb about to detonate. My pulse pounded as I made my way to the microphone and tapped it gently. Conversations faded as all eyes turned to me. Beside me, Derek beamed proudly. "Welcome, friends," I began, infusing warmth into my voice. "We're so honored you could join us today for this celebration of our son Eli's graduation." A smattering of applause. I nodded graciously. "Before we bring out the man of the hour, I wanted to say a few words about family." I turned to Derek, taking his hands in mine. His smile wavered slightly. "Family is everything, isn't it, dear?" I said meaningfully. "We do anything for those we love, but sometimes people aren't quite who we think they are." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Derek's eyes searched my face nervously. I gave his hands a squeeze before dropping them. "You all know Derek as a pillar of our community," I continued. "A loving father, devoted husband, successful businessman. But today, you will finally know the truth." Chaos erupted. Partygoers gasped and exclaimed in disbelief as Derek grabbed the microphone. "Marla, what are you doing?" he hissed desperately. I silenced him with an icy stare. Then I began systematically detonating the truth. I unveiled Derek's exorbitant spending and trips to casinos. I brought forth jilted lovers, still clinging to his promises of fidelity. Former business partners described his shady financial dealings. With Lena's help, I exposed every sordid misdeed and betrayal Derek had concealed behind his facade. With each revelation, Derek crumbled further. He yelled fruitless denials, but the damage was done. I barely recognized myself, so calmly and ruthlessly destroying my husband before the community we knew. But after years of polite silence, it was my time to speak. The coup de grace came when Derek's colleagues presented irrefutable evidence of unethical and illegal activity, sparing no detail. A hushed horror fell over the crowd. "Well, Derek," I asked sweetly, "do you have anything to say?" He gaped wordlessly, ashen and broken. In minutes, I had decimated the sterling reputation he had cultivated so carefully for years. Satisfaction coursed through me. But this was only the beginning. His professional life would soon follow. Clients abandoning him, deals collapsing, lawsuits pending. The board would have no choice but to remove him. I had thought I would feel regret in this moment, destroying so much. But all I felt was a dizzying liberation at finally stepping out from the shadows and driving the knife in myself. It was done. As the crowd's shock shifted to outrage, I calmly walked inside, shoulders back and head high. Let Derek reap the whirlwind. My work here was done. In the weeks following the party, Derek's life collapsed exactly as Lena and I had engineered. His business associates fled like rats from a sinking ship once word of his unethical practices spread. Deals evaporated and clients abandoned him. Investigations were launched, lawsuits filed. The board, scrambling to save the company's reputation, had Derek removed as CEO in a unanimous vote. Just like that, his professional life was in ruins. Personally, he fared no better. Evidence of his chronic infidelity became public knowledge. Half his social circle immediately distanced themselves. The other half only remained in morbid fascination, eager for new gossip about his downfall. Derek desperately tried salvaging his reputation, swearing his mistakes didn't reflect the real him. But the damage was done. He had shown his true colors too many times. No more charismatic excuses or deflections. Derek finally had to own the minefield he had created. And Eli, my dear stepson Eli, he initially refused to believe the reports about his father. But as irrefutable evidence mounted, the painful truth sunk in, shattering Eli's spotless image of the man he worshipped. He appeared at my door one evening, eyes downcast and shoulders slumped. "You were right about him," he muttered. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." My heart broke and swelled all at once. I had only wanted Eli's eyes open to his father's duplicity, but seeing his loss of innocence was bittersweet. "The past is done," I said gently. "All we can do is learn and move forward." Eli nodded, blinking back tears. I embraced him in the maternal comfort he had resisted for so long. Another unexpected visitor soon arrived, Derek's ex-wife Lena, the first woman Derek had callously discarded. Her eyes blazed with long-held fury as Derek answered the door. "Did you think I'd just let you destroy me and walk away?" she spat. "You took my life once, but no more. Now you have nothing and no one." Derek's voice shook with barely controlled rage. "Haven't you ruined me enough already?" He growled. Lena just smiled coldly. "This was a long time coming. Remember that." She turned and strode away, back straight and head high. I watched her go with newfound respect. We had both broken free of Derek's control and been avenged. Whatever came next for him, he had brought it on himself. In the aftermath, I waited to be crushed by guilt for destroying Derek so ruthlessly, no matter how justified. But all I felt was freedom. Freedom from years of polite silence. Freedom from being endlessly patient and dutiful while my soul withered. Derek had lit the fuse long ago. I had simply ensured his detonation was seen far and wide. He was finally forced to reckon with the man he truly was, not the charming illusion he projected. For that, I had no regrets. In the months after Derek's downfall, I slowly rebuilt a new life. With Derek removed as CEO and our reputation destroyed, I filed for divorce and settled into peaceful independence. The first weeks felt strange, rattling alone in the large house that had once boasted raucous family dinners and celebrations, but the solitude soon became comforting. I realized how heavily the facade of perfection had weighed on me, how it had stifled and drained me for years, requiring constant maintenance. Now I answered only to myself. I decorated solely based on my tastes, cooked experimentally without criticism, enjoyed quiet nights without the pressure of mandatory family activities. I breathed easier without the perpetual knot in my stomach worried over Derek's detachment or Eli's subtle hostility. The community gossip mill churned out endless fodder dissecting my supposed obliviousness to Derek's misdeeds. I ignored it all. They knew nothing of my years of silent suffering. Let them speculate. I owed no one an explanation. To my surprise, Eli became a regular visitor. Behind his father's back, he had done some soul-searching and realized I had supported him all these years while Derek manipulated from a distance. "You gave me so much, and all I did was push you away," he said remorsefully during one visit. "I was so focused on Dad's approval, I refused to see the truth." I saw real regret in his eyes. "The past is done," I reassured him. "All we can do is learn from our mistakes." Eli nodded. "Can we start over? I'd really like it if," he hesitated, "if I could call you Mom again." My breath caught, tears springing to my eyes. I held him close. "Of course, dear boy." Starting over would not erase the pain we had caused each other, but Eli was trying, as was I. For now, that was enough. Another ray of light. Lena and I remained close after bonding as vengeful allies. The solace of a friend who truly understood was healing for us both. We shared wine on my back patio, laughing over family photos. "To new beginnings," I said, raising my glass. "To freedom," Lena replied firmly. We clinked our glasses in a silent promise. No more wasted time or energy on those who would dim our light. The possibilities stretched endless before us. I received the divorce papers on a sunny April morning. I signed them with a sense of calm finality, then delivered them to the courthouse myself. That evening, for the first time in years, I watched the sun set alone from my back porch without harboring bitterness or regret. The past was finally laid to rest. My soul was lighter than I could ever recall. I was halfway through a bottle of champagne celebrating with myself when the doorbell rang unexpectedly. I opened it to find Derek standing stiffly in the fading light. We stared at each other in silence. "What do you want?" I finally asked wearily. Derek shifted awkwardly. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he mumbled. "For everything." I considered him for a long moment. Then I gently closed the door. Some things could never be salvaged. But that was okay. The possibilities still awaited. I returned to the porch, refreshed my champagne, and toasted the sunset once more.